All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Latitude live stream. Excited to have you here today. Excited to be here. Uh, First of all, I need to address the elephant in the room, which is the room itself. This is definitely not my murder shed, and we will get back to regular programming before long. This week, and occasionally we get together and kind of work hard on things. And this week we've gotten together so we can work on getting things ready for the Voyage launch. Um, let me, so we've, yeah, let me show you, I'll show you a picture actually. Let me share my screen and let's see here. And we are in southern Utah right now. We're all kind of staying in a bunch of Airbnbs right next to each other. And yesterday we went for a little walk in the morning through the national park that's nearby, which is Zion National Park. And it was a good time. And of course, we all had to be wearing our matching Voyage swag just to make sure everyone knew what we were up to. But it's been a good week. It's been very productive. The team is actually doing a multiplayer Voyage play test right now that I get to miss because of the live stream today. So um, anyway, that's kind of what we're up to this week. Let's get that closed now. I'm feeling a little bit uh, dis. What's the word? I don't have my normal setup, so I'm trying to operate this from a laptop. All right, cool. Well, let's get into things. This is going to be one of our regular ongoing live stream themes, which is we look at and respond to player feedback. Um, as many of you know, at Latitude, we care a lot about the feedback that we get from you, our community. We source feedback from a lot of different sources, obviously through our online communities like our Discord server, our subreddit. We also get emails through support. We do monthly player surveys that are extensive and deep, and we do a lot of data analysis on those. We also do new player testing, where we work with different platforms to get new players in to test AI Dungeon and Voyage who have never seen it before, so we can make sure that new players are having a good experience. Um, and let's see, what else? I'm missing one. I'm missing one. Well, anyway, we look at a lot of player data. So today, our goal is to review a little bit of that, and also feel free to address any questions that you want to post in the chat. I'm going to try to keep an eye on that. We've got a few community team members also watching the chats, and they'll feed me some questions as well to make sure we get things answered. So we'll talk it through. Um, One thing I wanted to share though before we get started is I think that one kind of theme that I've been seeing with the player feedback is I think there's sometimes there's this feeling of this tension between wanting AI Dungeon to improve and progress, and also being excited about Voyage coming. And I think this is actually kind of a really difficult challenge for us as a team because we don't have infinite resources, we don't have infinite number of developers and time, and so we have to make trade-offs. We have to make kind of a decision of balance. I was thinking this morning, it's like, I don't know if any of you had this experience growing up, but let's say your family was like planning a big vacation together. You might cut a few things from the family budget in anticipation of going on a fun trip, right? So maybe you don't eat out as often, or maybe you don't get to go to the movies, or maybe you don't get the new pair of shoes that you asked your parents for. And it's like we gotta sacrifice some of these things for the fun trip that's coming up, and then you have a great trip, and it's all worth it. We're kind of in the same situation right now with AI Dungeon and Voyage, where we are definitely deploying some of our um, resources towards Voyage, And sometimes that means that development on AI Dungeon isn't as fast as it has been in the past. And a lot of that is because we are really excited about Voyage and we think that it's going to deliver on a lot of the things that you want out of AI Dungeon. Voyage is going to have many of those things natively, and it's going to be, I think, for many players, it's going to be a monumental upgrade from AI Dungeon. That being said, AI Dungeon is not going away. We think that AI Dungeon actually has a different play experience and a different use case compared to Voyage. And so they're going to be living in parallel even afterwards. And once we get through the launch, I think what you'll see is a more sort of balanced, uh, kind of a more balanced focus across both. We're just pushing really hard right now to get Voyage out because we think it's going to be great, and we think a lot of players are going to love it. So that theme might come up today as we're reviewing some of this feedback. I may kind of come back to that a little bit, and I wish sometimes I wish we had infinite time and infinite resources and infinite developers to put at every single problem that we see, but that is one of the hard things is recognizing that there are really, really good features that players want. There's really good improvements that we can make, and trying to, I mean, it's actually a really good problem to have is that we're trying to, we have to say no to some really good things in order for us to do the really great things. That's a great problem to have, but doesn't mean it's easy. It's easier to say no to bad things, right? Um, so anyway, we're doing our best. I do see a question about company size. Uh, I think we have our team is around 30-ish now. I don't know the exact numbers. Um, it's about 30-ish now. We've grown a lot in the last year. I think we've more than doubled in the last year. So it's been we have been investing heavily to help make sure that we're able to sustain AI Dungeon and invest in developing Voyage. So it's been a big investment. But let's get into some of the player feedback. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to give a shout out to Wilmar or Kevin on our team, who's as always has prepared a great kind of report of some player feedback for us to review today. And we're going to go through some of the interesting themes. And one of the things I appreciate about Wilmar's report is he's not just trying to cherry pick the good stuff. He's also trying to find some of the critical feedback, places where we need to improve, and that gives us a chance to talk about some of this together. Um, as always, we're just trying to extract some highlights and pull things out. Um, so we'll start with this fun quote. What you've created is in itself amazing. The fact that the AI is capable of doing any of this amazes me, but much like people who complain about drinks while flying through the air at hundreds of miles per hour, we still want more. We love that. One of the things that we've tried to do with our product philosophy is set up, and we've talked about this in previous live streams, we have product pillars that guide what we're trying to do. So it's immersive storytelling, creative freedom, uh, community, and content, and all of those things are aspirations that we can't ever achieve. We will never be able to have. We're never going to be satisfied with the level of story immersion that we have today. It's great. We can see how it can be better, and in the future, it's just going to continue to get better and better. So we appreciate that your ambition grows with ours because you're going to help us to kind of stay on track and stay hungry and stay pushing on these things that we know we can make things better. All right, so let's talk about the core experience. So we're going to start with a few kind of survey things. This one is in response to how would you rate different aspects of the core experience, and you can see that some of the things that come in high are scenario variety, AI speed. Um, so obviously the content that's on our platform, we have a lot of different creators making stuff, and I think we have a tremendous variety of things to play, so that's not surprising. Um, as we get kind of further down, we're seeing kind of middle to lower scores on things like creator tools, stability, AI memory tutorials. Um, and so that is not lost on us. A couple things that I'll point out. One, we've made some big improvements to the AI memory system and the summarization system. Um, we're hopeful to see what this trend looks like in the next couple of months. One thing that we see with big changes like the ones that we did make to the content system is, or sorry, the memory system is sometimes it takes a while after these big changes for us to see the impact in the player sentiment around these things. So it's not surprising that it's low right now. We expect that it's going to get higher given the changes that we've made, and we have other changes that we're thinking about for the memory system as well. Um, so uh, I think another thing is the tutorials and guides. So a couple things on that. One is, we actually have been investing in building out more tutorials and guides. Our community team has been working on that. There's been a bunch of changes in the last few weeks. And one thing that we talked about as a team this week is that probably once we get through some of the Voyage launch stuff, one of the things we want to do is try to come up with some sort of framework that players can actually help each other easier. Discord is great because people can come in and talk and ask ideas and get input on how to do things, but it's easy for that information to get lost. Discord is just sort of like this river of information that can flow by, and that can make it difficult at times to kind of find the things that you're looking for. So one of our goals is to find a way for that information to be more sticky um, and be useful long term. So that's something we want to talk about. All right, let's talk about the next one here. This is a question of like what matters most for you on AI Dungeon, uh, and one would be absolute control over the experience, so the customization, and then the other is the smooth experience, focusing on storytelling. We saw 56% versus 43%. One caveat with this is representative of our player survey, and one thing that we've seen is that a lot of the people who respond to our survey, especially who respond to it in full, tend to be more of the tinkerer side. So there could be some. This is probably not representative of our full community, but it is still an interesting data point. One thing that we have seen is that this like with AI Dungeon in particular, it really is often more of like a collaborative story writing experience. And so because of that, it makes sense that people want to tweak and fine tune, adjust, and have all these levers so they can direct things the way they want. And that's a little bit different from the storyteller side, which is you kind of just want to sit down and get lost. You don't want to play with levers. You don't want to be adjusting temperature and switching models endlessly. So we kind of have, these sort of diverging tensions between these different player categories, and that is something that we feel occasionally as we're exploring product features. Is how do we serve both audiences well? Because you want to provide the power to the people who want to customize, but you don't want to do it in a way that feels overwhelming or cumbersome to the people who just want to get in, have a simple experience that's immersive and let you get lost in a story. So definitely, definitely one of the challenges that we think about here. Um, all right, let's open up here another one. Uh, so what are the things that you want to hear about from each other? So sorry, what do you want to hear about related to AI Dungeon? So clearly, we talked a little bit earlier about community tips and scripts and guides. It's clear that there's a need for more content around how to play and creative inspiration and tips and tricks and suggestions. Um, we this is awesome. This is great. Actually, this feedback is part of what inspired us last week to do. I hope it was last week. I can't keep track of days. I think it was last week we did a play stream on how to create a scenario for the first time. So Dan, who's new to our team, he walked through making his first scenario, and we had Michael, who is a Wandering Star, and then Tim, who is Van Van in the community. Both expert creators, both have well-known content, and they were there as advisors to kind of give Dan, give Dan suggestions as he walked through creating content for the first time. We did that because we are hearing this feedback that you want to have more guides. So we have more thoughts that we're going to put into this later. We hear you on this. We're going to see if we have better ways to address this, and we appreciate the feedback and the input because we want to make sure that you have what you're looking for. Um, and we also know that there's many in the community that have a lot of good stuff to share too. So here's a shout out to Lulia on some of the who's been active in sharing information about scripting and making scenarios. Um, we want a lot of information around like models and how to play. And anyway, there's a lot of stuff for a lot of good information in our community to share and to go around. A third of players are curious about Voyage, which is great. And one thing that we've learned from these live streams is that there's still a number of people within the AI Dungeon community who haven't heard of Voyage yet. So that's something that we hope to remedy as well. Okay, next one. Do you feel heard? Uh, Hopefully we can change this answer over time. And actually, this is one thing that Kevin and I talked about this week is we're going to try to ask this question every time because we want to see if we're doing better on this over time. Um, so uh, overall, I think this is a pretty good distribution. We clearly have some people who are not feeling heard, and I think we have some work to do to figure out how we can help them feel heard. But a few quotes from across the board here. I feel like y'all are working on stuff like better RPG mechanics and whatnot. So just remember that we appreciate the work y'all do. We really appreciate that. Another quote here. Will you truly read this or just have an AI algorithm scan through it for you? LMAO. Well, there's your answer. Uh, we do a bit of both, to be honest. We get a lot of responses, and so we do some AI processing to help us synthesize and turn it into different metrics. But then we also go through and try to extract out specific player quotes. One thing that we'll give credit to Nick for, our CEO. Nick has always been an advocate for getting directly to the player voice as much as possible. So even if some of us say, "Oh, I've heard things like this from the community," Nick likes to get specific player quotes about that, which I think is good because it means that we're not like summarizing the things that you say. We're not trying to kind of spin it. We're kind of our goal is to try to surface actual player sentiment and feedback directly to our team without any filtering uh, or I don't know. Words are escaping me. Synthesization. I don't even know if it's a word. Anyway, um, another one here. I don't know what you feel, but keep doing surveys or send automated in-app messaging telling the user to write in the one thing they care about most, which is a great suggestion. And I think that may actually be one of the next. No, that's one of the other things coming up soon. All right. Is AI Dungeon going in the right direction? And I think this is, let's see, so only 3.7% disagree. And I think I like that this sentiment here, like things are better than ever, but, and I think we agree with that too. Like the amount of progress that we've made with AI Dungeon over the last few years is pretty astounding. I mean, I think it was only 2 years ago that we first launched Mythomax and Mixtral as models, and it felt like that was like the beginning of this sort of like revitalization of AI Dungeon, the start of having all these new open source models inside of the platform, um, and it was also sort of the start of growth and being able to kind of bring more stability. And in the last 2 years, a lot has improved. We've you know, we've talked about the AI models. We've revitalized our infrastructure to be more stable and faster and more performant. We've squashed a lot of bugs. And I think it's also true that there's still a lot of work to be done. AI Dungeon is actually, on the surface, it looks like a simple text experience, but there are so many things happening behind the scenes, and it is by far the most complex technical product that I've ever worked around. And that just means we have a lot more work to do to keep it going. So a few quotes here. Last update, Aura was bar none the best I've ever seen put into AI Dungeon on my time playing. It truly feels like Latitude is a team invested in our experience. Really appreciate that. Our focus is, as always, to give as much value to our players as possible. Here's an agree quote. Not everything is perfect, and it never will be, but there are regular, meaningful updates and new models being added. This is true. It feels like we are all on a road trip with Latitude, and we, the passengers, want to stop for food and bathroom breaks, but there aren't any stops happening. Yeah, this is, yeah. I would love to understand what's meant in this metaphor of food and bathroom breaks. Um, yeah, I think the things that come up most frequently is I think there's always sort of like this undercurrent of different kind of painful bugs we need to address, and it seems like the memory system and I think context and memory in general is sort of is sort of the area where I think there's the most frustration still. And like I said, we're going to see if the most recent changes kind of start to shift this sentiment, and we're hoping that it does. But please feel free to keep the comments coming about what you think could help us to better deliver on what you're looking for. Right. I'm on my laptop, so I can't simultaneously view quotes and uh, comments. So I'm going to just do a quick scan through the comments real quick and see if I see anything that I need to address. Looks like our team is answering many of them too. So I'm just going to keep going. And you know what? Actually, what I'm going to do for Kevin and Dan, who I know are watching, if there's anything that you feel like I need to respond to, just send me a DM and I'll on Slack and I'll look at it. I'll have my phone open so I can see that. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Privacy. This is an interesting one. 58% of you feel like privacy is respected. Only 3% say it's not enough. And there's actually a big gap here of people who just don't know. And that was a really interesting segment because player privacy is something that we care about a lot. And this is one of those where it doesn't show up in patch notes and it doesn't show up in, releases as like, hey, we just did a big thing for player privacy because it's sort of built into every decision we make as we develop the product. And where it shows up in particular is in probably, this is from the top of my head. There's probably more than this, but three that come to mind. One is kind of partner contracts. The other is in feature development and like technology choices. And then the third one I would say is in like architecture and planning. So let's go through that. So from a partner perspective, when it comes to privacy, um, we are lucky to have so many providers today to choose from. And so that puts us in and the great thing is we process a ton of AI calls. Ryan, our COO, he often says it feels like we're the pretty girl at the dance sometimes, where we have no shortage of people who want our business. And that puts us in a great negotiating place because it means that we can share our expectations for what we want from a partner. And part of that is that we don't work with partners who store player data. One of the things that AI companies love is they love storing data because it means they can use it to train new models or do model evaluations. And we've made it clear that that's not okay with our player data. And the reason we are not okay with that is like we know that these adventures for many of you are very personal. In a lot of cases, many of you are expressing parts of your individuality that you haven't even shared publicly with your closest friends. AI Dungeon is often about like assuming a character and an identity that's different from your own, and you're kind of exploring parts of your personality sometimes that you're unsure of or want to experiment with, and we think that's great. But it's also very, uh, it would feel like a journal being shared if that got leaked somehow. So um, we often talk about how player story data, we treat it like we actually say that like I think players would prefer that their credit card information got leaked versus adventure data. And that just shows how important we think privacy is to you. So we take that very seriously with our vendors. We also take it seriously with the technology that we choose. So we have to make sure that, similarly that, for databases and storage providers and CDNs and uh, authentication services, like all of these things, we need to make sure that have a high level of security. And then the last one is the architecture, the way we build. We need to we have to make decisions that uh, make sure that we have resilience against attacks and that things are encrypted where they can be and that we have adequate protections in place as much as possible. Another part of that is just not capturing personal information. We you provide an email address to log in, but we're not asking for phone numbers. We're not asking for your name. Outside of the email, there really isn't anything that could tie any of these things back to people as individuals, and we've intentionally tried to keep it that way. So there's a lot that we do on privacy, but it's clear that we need to share more about this with you. And so we probably will, because we think this is an important part of the AI Dungeon experience. Cool. All right. So let's see about the surveys themselves. Really appreciate the work that Kevin has been doing on our surveys. I think they're not only are they informational, but they're also quite fun, and they're very much a little bit different than how other companies do it. And so, we even uh, asked questions about whether or not you like that, and um, it it seems like the majority still do, but we're going to keep iterating and trying to make sure that the surveys uh, get us the information we need while still being respectful of your time and where possible, still having a little bit of fun along the way. If you didn't see the last survey, there was a game and within the survey, um, and Kevin asked that I play this live in front of you. So I did not do this yet, so we're gonna go through it. All right. So the first question is, are you ready for the survey adventure? Here we go. The call. A flash of golden light, a tiny pop, and suddenly there's a hamster standing in front of you. He's wearing a bandana, red, slightly too big for him, and carrying what appears to be a toothpick sword. He clears his throat with surprising gravitas. Adventurer, I'm Matu. Before you ask, yes, I'm a hamster. I can talk. No, I won't explain it. We don't have the time. He gestures dramatically at the horizon, which has begun to flicker with an ominous purple haze. The realm is under siege. The cliche lords have risen. Ancient writing sins given form. You've seen them before, even if you don't know their names. The phrase that repeats too often a character who appears in every story. The smell that fills the air whenever something dramatic happens. Matu's tiny eyes meet yours. You've noticed them. So have we. That's why I'm here. He sheaths his toothpick with a flourish. So, what do you say? All right. So now I have to decide what I'm going to do. Do I follow this noble hamster? This feels a little like self-congratulatory if I call myself a noble hamster. So I'm going to be skeptical. I'm going to be skeptical of this Matu fella. What's in it for me? Matu sighs, a tiny exasperated sound. Fine, yes, there's treasure. There's always treasure, but you don't get to the treasure without going through the air changes. It starts with a crackle, static electricity lifting the hair on your arms. Then, the smell. Sharp, metallic, and unmistakable. The scent of ozone fills your nostrils. It always does. Whenever something dramatic is about to happen, whenever lightning is involved or magic or someone very powerful wants you to know they've arrived, a figure descends from the clouds, literally descends, crackling with energy surrounded by arcs of blue-white electricity. His voice booms across the landscape. I am Lord Ozone. You seek passage through my domain? Matu rolls his eyes. Here we go. Everything has a price, Lord Ozone continues, speaking dramatically. The question is whether you can afford it. He floats there, waiting, smelling aggressively of electrical discharge. All right, we've got two options. Name your term, Sparky, or attack before he monologues any further. Y'all may not know this about me. As it's ironic as being someone involved with the community, but I'm not a big talker. So I'm going to go with number two. Attack before he monologues any further. You don't give him a chance to finish. You charge, weapon raised, battle cry, in your throat, straight at Lord Ozone. He barely has time to look surprised before you're on him. Insolent, he starts, but you're already swinging. He zaps you, not with lightning, with something worse. A beam of pure emotional confusion hits you square in the chest, and suddenly you're feeling everything. Joy, rage, mild hunger, nostalgia for a place you've never been, a vague sense that you've forgotten someone's birthday. A mix of emotions, Lord Ozone announces smugly. My signature attack. You cannot fight what you cannot categorize. You stagger, overwhelmed, and then a tiny blur of fur. Matu launches himself at Lord Ozone's ankles and bites down. What? Ow, a hamster? Matu's voice is muffled but clear. Now! While he's distracted by being a lazy riding shortcut. Strike together. Yeah, well, two choices. Strike together with Matu, hang back and let the hamster handle it. Obviously, I want help. So we're gonna get some help. Lord Ozone dissipates. Not with a bang, with a fizzle. The crackling fades, the ozone smell lingers for a moment, and then drifts away on the wind. Where he stood, there's nothing but a faint scorch mark, and the distant rumble of a storm moving on. As he fades, you hear his voice one last time, quieter now, almost thoughtful. You fight differently, not alone. Perhaps the old patterns are not as fixed as I believed. Then he's gone. Matu shakes himself off, dislodging static from his fur. He looks up at you with something like respect. They thought they could hide in the patterns, the cliches. They thought if they just kept showing up, nobody would notice anymore. Nobody would care. He grins, or does the hamster equivalent. But you kept pointing at them. Hard to ignore that. I'm going to say we make a good team, Matu, because that's right. We make a good team with the community. All right. The realm breathes easier. Somewhere, Alara finds a new name. Her own. For the first time in centuries, Lord Ozone learns subtlety. His next entrance will merely have a hint of electricity in the air. The efficient one discovers a thesaurus and weeps with joy. The intricately carved boxes are still intricate, but now they are occasionally also ornate, or detailed, or just old. Progress. Matu climbs onto your shoulder. His tiny weight is warm and familiar. Not bad, adventurer. Not bad at all. The purple haze fades to nothing. The realm is quieter now. The good kind of quiet. Not empty, just resting. Same time next crisis? Matu asks. You smile. The end. Thanks for fighting alongside of us. And thus concludes our story together. So if any of you followed along and did the same survey adventure, let's see what some of the results were. Let's see here. We had, what do you do? We had 54% taking the hero's road. Nice job. 25% taking the pragmatist road, which is what I did. Then 21% with the suspicious road. Cool. And we had almost 80% people play. That's awesome. 92% chose to finish this together. 57% refused to trade Matu for treasure. Oh, I didn't know I was up for trade. So that means that 43% were willing to give me up for treasure. I'll keep that in mind. And then 86% of skeptics chose show me everything. Cool. All right, um, let's see what else. The pattern. Path C players, the one who noticed something was off from the start, overwhelmingly chose to go deeper into the meta narrative. 64% recognized the Alara paradox was a writing problem. 81% said this was the real fight all along. That's this community. We're curious, pattern aware, willing to look beyond the curtain. Very well described. And here's what people said about this experience. It was adorable. It was funny. It's good that you all know about the cliches. We know about the cliches. In fact, we with a lot of the models that we fine tune, we try to mitigate many of the cliches. And there's to some degree, there's only so much we can do. And it's interesting how we were talking actually um, on our drive to the national park yesterday. Nick was talking about how some of these cliches are actually kind of across multiple models because many of them are being trained on the same data sets, or that sometimes a new frontier model will come out and other models will use data output from that model to train their own models. And so like these cliches are actually starting to be more uh, permeating across multiple models now just because of the way that models are trained. So it's a nasty problem. But we are aware, and we want to fix them as much as you do. Very cool. Okay, a couple more things from the survey, and then we'll do a few Discord and Reddit things. Anything that you want to communicate with us. So this is, so we do a few open-ended questions, as you suspect. And let me just kind of cherry pick a few responses. Let me get a drink though. All right. Okay, let's see. We'll go to number 9. There's a bug in the, you know what I should do? I should get like a D20 dice and like, that should be how I choose these. All right, there's a bug in the mobile version of AI Dungeon in both browser form and app form, and the continue button doesn't work unless I refresh the page. So I can only continue only after I refresh the page. It's annoying. That would be annoying. If you haven't reported it yet in our uh, Discord channel or Reddit, let us know. Although I'm guessing someone on our community team or our QA team is going to pick up on that, and we'll see if we can address it. Um, just so you know, Ryan and David, who's Maverick, they've been basically spending this entire week bug fixing. And it was funny because they started with like a list of like, I think Ryan was describing that they started with like, he's been really proud. He's like, we started with 35 bugs and we're down to like 11. And then he said, but we've fixed like 87 in between. So as they fix bugs, they find more and they just keep going and going and going. So they have been cranking on bug fixing right this week. Um, so hopefully we see more there. Um, let's see. I would love if there were two things like italics, bold, and two, the ability to use custom UI colors. Agree. I think customization of the experience is something that is important, especially if for a text game. Like, I use a bunch of different writing apps, and one of the first things I do is I want to make sure that it's in dark mode and make sure the font is readable for me. And um, yeah, there's definitely more we can do there, and something that I think we'll address at some point. Let's see. Let's try number 18. I'm a huge fan of how it lets me do basically whatever. It definitely gets a little scatterbrained during long stories and forgets who's who, but the chaos is part of the fun. With better memory retention, it's a 10 out of 10. Yep, agreed on the memory stuff. Here's another one. More manual control over the memory would be massively helpful. For example, if I want to delete memories when they get information wrong, or I just want to completely reset them, I have to manually delete them one by one. There could be up to 100 of them per adventure on my end. So this almost sounds more like being able to delete, like a select, and you could kind of multi-select could be an interesting addition there. That might not be a horribly difficult thing for us to implement. I'll have to ask the team about that. That's a good idea. All right, let's do another question, which is, what is the one point that you want us to remember? The bugs on the app version. The game is great, but the app version is terrible. I play most of the time on my phone. It's better to use the web browser because the app has so many frustrating problems. Uh, you are not the only one frustrated. We are too. Android in particular is problematic, especially for older devices. There's just so many different devices, and they cover such a wide range of capabilities. Um, we're working on it. We also we're targeting switching kind of to a new foundational technology for our mobile apps that we think is going to be more stable and actually be more on par with the stability that we have on the web side. So that's something that we're eyeballing right now. And we've been talking a lot about that this week because we feel similar that we want to increase the stability overall for mobile. The, what's frustrating with mobile, and I think especially for mobile players, is newer devices that have like all of the latest updates from Google and Apple. Those tend to be much, much better. Yes, there are bugs that hit those, but they're not as common, they're not as frequent. It's the devices that aren't getting updated anymore. And with Android in particular, they hit their end of life cycle relatively quick. I mean, there's some Android phones that can be can basically kind of be end of life, like even like just 2 years after you purchase them brand new. Some manufacturers build the hardware in a way that just doesn't keep up with the updates, and that is frustrating, especially for players who like have a phone that's, I mean, practically new, and they're not getting updates. And so we're trying to fix bugs that are caused by OSs not being able to be updated on old hardware, and it's kind of a mess to deal with. So mobile is, we love mobile. We know most of you play on mobile, and we want it to be better as well. Um, we work hard on it. I know sometimes it maybe feels like if we don't, but we spend a lot of time addressing mobile things. And there's still always going to be more to do. So that's part of why we think maybe there's a new architecture that might help us better there. Um, all right, we'll go 5. I think you guys are more popular than you think you are. I wish more AI generated content was like you guys. Oh, well, thank you. Um, let's talk. All right, number 11. Maybe multilingual content. My native language is French, and even if I'm comfortable with English, I prefer my scenarios in French, but sometimes it really feels like literally translated. This is a good one. Um, Internationalization is a really, really, really big project, and I think what's I think what's frustrating about it is it feels like it should be really easy. It feels like you should be able to just translate all the buttons and all the links on the site and have it work. And it feels, many of you have like played with language models in different languages, and you say, hey, they do pretty good. But think about all the problems that we have just in English that we spend tons and tons of time trying to address, like the cliches that we talked about, but also things like our publishing platform, like UGC. We have content guidelines, and then inside the game we have our safety systems to make sure that the AI is generating properly. We also spend a lot of time evaluating different models to make sure that the story output quality is high. And then we even do fine tunes to give different variety. We want some models to be more, aggressive and kind of provide more challenge, and others to be more like a cozy storybook writing experience. And there's a lot of kind of detail and nuance and all of that. As soon as you add languages, we basically have to do that across all of the systems that we support. It also means that we need to have, support for like support staff that speak all these different languages so that we can interact with you in these languages. It means that, um, we need to be fine-tuning models in these languages. We need to have safety systems. We need to have content moderation in these systems. So it's actually a really, really, really big, massive problem or project, not problem. It's actually an opportunity, and we see it as a growth opportunity that we want to take at some point. Um, it's that point isn't right now. Getting Voyage launched is our kind of next big growth opportunity, and we do think that languages will come at some point. It's just with the size of the team that we have, it's too early. Um, and even like one thing as well is like, other like there are tools that are being available to automate some of the translation things, but honestly, they're not really good. I think most of you who speak different languages and have encountered Google Translate versions of things know that those translations just don't sit well. And really for us, like if we can't deliver a really great experience in a language, we kind of don't want to like half-ass it. Um, like we really want, like when we do French, when we do German, when we do Spanish, when we do Japanese, we want to make sure that the actual story quality matches what we have on in English, and we really can't do that unless we have a team and an infrastructure to support it fully. So um, anyway, long story short, we're very interested in languages. We would love to do it. It's probably not going to happen in the next 6 months, but something that we could do at some point for sure. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Here's one. The prices are nuts. I know AI can be expensive, but I struggle to feel justified even at the champion tier. Don't even get me started on the hidden membership rates. Prices pushing $1,000 a month is mind-boggling, even if nobody actually uses it. Yeah, yeah. The $1,000 shadow tier. I mean there's a reason why we didn't put that one on the homepage. We realize that it is a little bit crazy. What's even crazier though is that the users who are subscribed to the $1,000 price tier, the Apocalypse tier, it's actually saving them money. Before we had them, we actually had some players spending as much as $3,000 a month on credits. And part of why we introduced these tiers is because we felt like we could give these players more AI compute for less money if we had a subscription that kind of addressed their different needs. AI is expensive, and we one of the things that we try to do is figure out the over time. Like I think this is one of the things that we have um, figured out like in a good way over time is like how much AI can we give to you while still being being sustainable and being able to kind of fund development of more AI models and funding Voyage and some of these things that everyone wants to see. And that's a hard balance. Obviously, I think we would all love DeepSeek at 128K for, $5 a month. That would be awesome. But then then AI Dungeon wouldn't be around next month. And so it really is a hard trade-off. We don't ever want someone to feel like the money that they're spending isn't worth it. So if you ever get into a subscription and you feel like it hasn't been worth it to you, come talk to us. We'd be happy to kind of give you a refund. We don't, we have a very generous refund policy. Our goal is not to take your money if you don't feel like we deserve it. We If anything, that's feedback to us that we need to do better. So I do wish that the rates were, you know, I think we all wish that we could give more AI for less, but the costs of AI compute are fixed, and we have to pay what we have to pay, and we're trying to be a company that could be around for a generation or two or three or more. So yeah, this is always going to be a tension, and we're doing our best here. And uh, you know, uh, I wish it was easy. We have to. It is. There are costs after all. Um, all right. Then the next one. Don't forget that Project AI Dungeon is not just for making money. We agree. Cost and pricing. A lot of cost and pricing. Yep. We agree with all that. Cool. Um, let's see. I think we already probably touched a little bit enough on the Matu things. I have a few more minutes left. Let's get back into let's see, there's a few questions. Um, do, do, do. Let's see, there was a question around what do you say about those who say the memory and behavior was better last week or so versus now? What I would say to that is I would want to double click and look into it because I don't know if anything has changed in the last week. I don't think it has. Um, One of the things that's hard with AI systems is uh, different adventures can have different behaviors. And then even within a single adventure, it can it can be going well, and then suddenly it kind of goes off the rails. I've seen this not just with like AI Dungeon, but even like as I use AI models for developing code, or I use AI for a bunch of stuff like health, and I have bots now that help me with finances and things like that. Sometimes what I see is like I'll get a conversation that just kind of derails and goes off the track sometimes. And it can be hard to pinpoint exactly why, and it may be related to the memory systems. Sometimes it's just it can just happen. I mean, AI, one of the things, I mean, AI is not a deterministic technology. So meaning it can go in a number of various ways. I think that's one reason why a lot of players like the restart to or the retry or erase to here functionality, because sometimes things kind of go off and it's like, all right, we need to kind of hit restart and try again. Um, so even if nothing has changed in the last week on the memory system, it's still very likely that you're having an experience that could be attributed to the memory system. Um, and it can be hard to tell. The best way for us to know is if you submit a report with a feedback ID. That gives us a chance to look into it and see what the actual cause is. So um, I guess that would be my response is I am inconclusive. It would require more investigation until I can say for sure what else is going on. Um, all right, some of these others don't seem like questions. All right, so we'll move on. Okay, let's jump into a little bit of Reddit. Let's see what we're on. Let's see what we have on Reddit this week. We'll refresh. Let's see if I can find some bugs or feedback. Uh, Here's a good one. The draft feature is torture. First of all, this is a message directly to the developers. Enjoy my rant if you will. Will do. I do enjoy a good rant. Why the draft feature? It is abyssal and annoying. We can't publish on our own anymore. We have to wait for a few minutes. Then, when you want to override it, it doesn't even show all the options. Why? Then we can't even publish anymore since it's going to be out of daily checks. I'm a wanderer, so I hate it. I constantly think of new scenarios, but keep it if you want. Um, all right, so I think this is so we did talk about we had a whole live stream about the new publishing flow recently. There were a few things driving the change. One was actually uh, we feel like it's a better creator flow overall. Now, granted, there might be this is a brand new workflow, which means there could be bugs and there could be optimizations we need to make to the flow. So I'm not trying to say that it's perfect right now by any means, but I do think it's a better paradigm. If you look at a lot of other publishing platforms, they tend to have very discrete draft phases and publish phases. And that way you have more control over when the changes that you're making get sent to your community and your followers. It works that way for social posts, whether it's TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. It works that way for blogging, WordPress, things like that. It works that way for um, uh, gaming or even apps, whether it's Roblox or pushing things on the App Store or the Play Store. Like this idea of a draft and then a published state is very, very common. And the pattern that we had of things just sort of automatically saving it, in some ways it kind of took control away from creators because then they didn't have the ability to bundle a bunch of changes together and release it as one big new thing if they wanted to. In fact, a lot of creators were sort of manually creating this draft feature by basically duplicating their scenarios and making a bunch of changes in another scenario and then manually copying it over to the one that was already published. And that's just kind of that's a horrible workflow too. And so we saw that behavior going on and we thought, this needs to be more of a kind of a traditional publishing flow. Um, One thing as well that we've seen with other platforms like Roblox is sometimes um, there are like games on Roblox that receive lots of updates over time, and we've actually heard from creators that they want the same thing with scenarios too, where it's not just about publishing a scenario once. Maybe you publish a scenario and then over time you update it or you have a new release or you add in a new multiplayer choice and that gives creators the ability to kind of continually build and expand the world of that scenario and make it greater, better and better over time, and it increases the replayability of that scenario. So um, this draft feature helps with that, but it also paves, like it's kind of sets us on a path where like later we could let you have like a change log with big updates and have it feel more like a kind of a real kind of publish flow. So that's one of the big reasons for this. Another one is for the AI moderation side of things. Uh, every time you make a change, it's possible that the rating that your scenario should be assigned could change. You could um, add or remove things that might change how it's rated. And if we are checking that every time you make a single change, it's going to be cumbersome to you, and it's going to be a burden on our systems and be a lot of cost. So the two changes actually worked really, really well hand in hand. And so we saw kind of a great opportunity to do both of them at the same time because they support each other. There's been a few critiques of this that we're aware of. One of them is one that was called out here in this Reddit post, which is the limited number of daily rating checks. And there's a few cases here that we've seen, and let me try to address some of them. So one is there's I think some people have this um, fear or sense that um, they want to be able to make lots of publishing changes in a single day. Uh, as we've dug in and looked at the data, out of the thousands of people creating, we have fewer than like I think we did a sample of 5,000 creators, and fewer than five were publishing often enough where this rating check would have been an issue. So that's literally 0.01%, if I remember correct. Let me Somebody can do the math on that. Maybe it's 0.1%. Um, so it's a fairly small kind of subsection of creators. The second thing that we've seen is um, there are times where creators want to batch update a number of scenarios. So for instance, maybe you've been working on a new set of AI instructions or maybe an upgrade to your script, and you want to do that a bunch number of scenarios. That's a use case that I think we do need to solve for. It doesn't happen very often, and right now, if you have something like that, please let us know and we can help you through it. But that's another case where I think this could be a limitation. The third one that we've seen is that players are trying to hit a certain rating, and so they'll like make a small change and then try to hit the rating button and see if it adjusts. And that one, I actually think the limit here may actually be the right thing because um, we don't, we want to make sure that these scenarios are rated in a way that makes where players kind of find them where they expect to see them. And so, if there's too many checks, I think it becomes easy to sort of kind of game the system. We want to be mindful of that and be cautious of that. So that's one thing that we want to take a look at there. Um, a few things that we're going to be doing though, we're looking at doing more diff-based versions of ratings, which might change the cost equation and could let us open up more rating checks for people. But we'll probably always have some limitation just because we don't want it to be a way to game the system and try to kind of push the limit on the lines there. Um, let's see, I got one question Wilmar sent over here that I can answer. Where do you see AI Dungeon headed in 5 to 10 years in what you'd like to see implemented, if ever? That's a good question. 5 to 10 years, I'm gonna come back to our product pillars. So we have immersive storytelling, creative freedom, and and let's see, community and characters, or sorry, community and connection. Um, like we're going to continue to push on all of those. I think one of the ones that's easiest to see the future on is actually the immersive storytelling. Right now, both AI Dungeon and Voyage are primarily text-based, and that's because we believe that immersion needs to start with really, really good story. And as it is currently, a lot of the visual models, whether it's an image generation or video or even these world models that are coming out, those are interesting aesthetically, but they don't have an underlying kind of storyline. So we feel like the storyline is most important. I mean, if you think about like a good movie has to have good story, it has to have good characters to start with. Then you can add in actors and special effects and things like that. I think we all know some movies where um, the special effects and the visuals came first and the storytelling last, and they are often not the greatest of movies. So we're starting with great story, an immersive story. But over time, I think immersion is going to be our goal is to try to um, make the stories even more immersive. And it's true that the visuals can make a story more immersive. Reading text is obviously very immersive and it engages your imagination, but it can become even more immersive with visuals and maybe even like a 3D world that you're exploring. And so with AI Dungeon and Voyage, I think there's a natural evolution there where we can see those things coming into the experience. But when they're married with the story engine and the world engine that we're building, this can be much more powerful because now you have that great story and you have these immersive options of different ways of experiencing that story. I imagine that's where some of the bigger things would be in the next few years. Those models are going to get cheaper, they're going to get better, and that will make it so that and they're going to get faster. That's one of the big downsides right now with like world models and video models. They take a long time. They're just not responsive enough for a great experience. I mean, even text to output still takes a lot longer than um, traditional game uh, experiences do. So that's a limitation, is that latency as well. So all of those things are going to change over time. Um, and then on the creative freedom side, what one of the other things is like we believe strongly in the kind of creative potential of AI Dungeon and Voyage and in our creator community, and we want to see a lot more advancement in algorithms for personalizing what content is being shown to you. We also want to have much more robust and powerful creator tools. We want better scripting. We want to have tooling that allows you to use AI to help you build and create quicker and better and faster. We want to allow you to create more things by expanding what you have access to through, maybe it's APIs, maybe it's other things so that you can really kind of see your creative vision to life in AI Dungeon and Voyage. So expanding the creator tool set, I think, is another big area for us to push on for the next decade. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon either. That's a big area for us. Yeah, I think those are the two that seem most obvious to me. Um, this is this is an area too where I think Nick would also have some interesting insight, and I think he's talked about this on some different live streams. It'd be good to get his take on this some point as well. Um, cool. Let's see. So let's see if there's anything else on Reddit here that we should do. Um, autocorrect for say do. Um, should be removed. Autopilot on your 747. Oh, is this maybe this is meant for like how we kind of do the transforms and uh, kind of change it from like and do like the you say stuff maybe. Yeah, story mode is probably what I would recommend. I'm not sure I totally understand this feedback, so um, okay. I, I would ask a follow-up question on that one. I don't think I understand that one yet. Thoughts on the new memory system? It's much better. Few issues. Okay. Um, loses older details as the story progresses. Yeah, I mean that is definitely sort of. I mean that's one of the properties of um, that is one of the properties of AI models in general is that as the context gets longer, each memory is now representative of a smaller chunk of the overall context length, and so it has less relative meaning. Um, and you're right, the solution here is to put it in plot essentials, but you're also right that that's kind of like an annoying workflow perspective. So I think what's tricky here is trying to figure out a way to highlight the most important and meaningful memories rather than just leaving it to the AI potentially to make that distinguishing thing. But I think this could be an interesting improvement over time is like it's not enough just to capture the memories, which is sort of like just like a summary essentially of the entire story, but it's also like intelligently synthesizing which memories are the most important and highlighting them more prominently in the context. I could see that being a really nice enhancement to the memory system. I think that's a really great thought and suggestion for the memory system. All right, another question coming in from the chat. Do you guys develop the models on your own once they release, or do the AI companies release their models and you just paste it into the site? I do not know the process, so apologies. No, that's a great question. And it's actually a bit of both. Um, a lot of the models that we're using are, um, I'm going to use air quotes here, off the shelf. There is configuration that we do with every single model. There's a number of parameters that we need to adjust and test with. And we talked about this a little bit with the Aura update. You know, we can with our providers, we can select different like quantization levels, different temperatures, different context lengths, different performance speeds, um, and all of those can have a different effect on how how the models actually perform. So, you know, DeepSeek on AI Dungeon genuinely might play differently than DeepSeek on a different platform because you know we configure it differently. So that's one level of configuration. There are models that we do what's called fine tuning. So we're not developing our own base models. That's an extremely expensive, time-consuming process, and it's not one that we feel like we need or want to specialize in, but we have done fine tunes. And so what a fine tune is it takes a base model and it sort of narrows it to focus on a particular use case, and it trains it. It basically what it does is adjust the weights. That's what it technically does. So that's where some of our models like Wayfarer and Madness and some of these came from, is that these are fine-tuned models. Actually, Madness is a community open source one. Sorry, but we do fine-tune. And so if any of you know Raymond, who interacts in our uh, let's actually sorry, Griff, who interacts in our community. He, I mean, that's kind of his thing. He grabs different data samples and he fine tunes and he sees what that play experience is like. And so some of those like more kind of fine tuned, customized models, those are ones that we make. And so we do a mix. Um, we, but yeah, we are not trying to compete with like creating actual base models. We're going to leave that to the big open source creators like Meta, as well as you know the closed source creators like Anthropic and Google and OpenAI and others that are doing things like that. We're not going to be making base models anytime soon. Good question. All right. What happened to the increased communication that they talked about? Um, Good question. They they You're right. They've fallen off a little bit. The hard thing is, man, I think what's been hard is it's we have been working really hard on the Voyage launch, and we read a lot of this stuff, and I think it's just sometimes it's easy to read and not respond to all of them. So fair call out. We can we'll do better on this. We're trying to um, there's a balance, and there's a tension on our time, and we have some very aggressive internal goals that we're trying to meet, and yeah, sometimes it gets lost here, so apologies. That's a great call out. Okay. Um, all right, let's do maybe one or two on Discord before we sign off here. Let's do feature requests. Let's see, scheduling scenarios. Would we be able to schedule scenarios to come out, sort of how you can do send it later? Um, that is interesting. So, I mean, that's another, we talked about the publishing flow earlier. We wouldn't have been able to do this before, but now with the draft thing, this actually could be an option. So if you want to kind of set the time that it dropped, that could happen. That's an interesting idea. All right, I'm gonna try to find some that are like, well, um, this is interesting. Abandonment rate. That sounds interesting. All right. I'd like to see unique players added to the dashboard metrics. Oh, dashboard metrics for creators. Yes. It would be useful to me to know how replayable my scenarios are and how much they're attracting new players versus bringing previous players back. Love this suggestion. And by the way, I actually think I don't know where it is. Someone prototyped a new creator dashboard that has more metrics. Um, Sorry, I may not read the rest of this because now I got excited. Our goal is to actually give you more metrics like this because I think many of you want to see more engagement with your um, scenarios, and really like these player metrics are a way for you to understand where people are falling off, and it can improve the overall quality, especially for those of you that are like, look, people create for different reasons. Some people just create just for for their own personal self-satisfaction. Some people are trying to make the most engaging content that attracts the most players, and these tools would absolutely be helpful. It's one of our priorities. We are making more dashboard metrics very soon. All right. Let's see. Search bar within adventures. Oh, that's not a bad idea. Yeah. Um, hmm. Trying to think how we would do that. I think that's a good idea, though. It'd be easy to see it, and it would be nice as well to be able to search across your entire like collection, and and search for a keyword and remember which adventure it's in, and then be able to go drill specifically into it. That would be really nice. I like that suggestion. Um, auto multiplayer. Auto multiplayer matchmaking system with a lobby and random option that lets people join a new game once uh, once joined. It'll save you to that game, and you can rejoin at any time. We agree. Better multiplayer is coming. It'll start with Voyage, and then I think we can potentially expand it to AI Dungeon. The architecture is very different for AI Dungeon, a little more challenging, but our goal is to get to a place where we have lobbies and help you to find people to play with. And there's a lot that goes into that. We want to make sure that we're matching to people who want to play a similar like game genre, but also a similar play style. I think there'll be some people who are going to be very mechanics driven. They want to kind of, you know, do combat and they want to collect, you know, increase their inventory. There's going to be other players who want to be more fun and silly. There's others going to be more serious. So I think we're going to try to find a way to kind of match people to the right player personas as well to help with that matching. So we're thinking a lot about multiplayer right now, and we're architecting Voyage with that in mind. Well, cool. I'm going to see. I think I'm gonna probably my voice is about shot, so I think I'm gonna call it here. I'm gonna go get a drink with a bit of lemon and let my voice maybe a little honey and help my voice be soothed for a little bit. And that way I have a little bit of voice left to talk to the team today. Which if I didn't have a voice to talk to them, they might appreciate that more. But I think that's a well, unfortunately, they may need to hear about that. Any last questions? Let me kind of scroll through. If there's any last questions you want me to answer in the chat, please feel free to throw them in here. I'm glad a lot of people like the multiplayer suggestion. And cool. I love and appreciate that many of you are clarifying some of the stuff that I say in the comments and helping each other out. One of the things that's hard with live streams is it's sometimes hard to think of intelligent answers on the fly and then try to say it in a way that's semi coherent. And I'm a slow thinker. We'll be honest. I'm not super fast on my feet. We've got some other people on the team that are fast talkers and can react quickly. I am somebody who tends to hear something, and I prefer a moment to kind of sit and think and process, and then I talk. And so this respond on the fly is definitely not my strength. So it's very often that I'm going to be messing up and misspeaking and saying the wrong thing or being not very clear. So I appreciate you all filling in the gaps where I come short on my answers. But once again, we really appreciate all of the feedback. I hope it's clear that we are watching and paying attention to it. We're listening. We're doing our best to address as much as we can. We're trying to incorporate as much of it as we can into our product roadmap and inspire the the direction that we're taking the company, as well as AI Dungeon and Voyage as products. We build it for you. We build it with you, and we appreciate you being part of the journey. So appreciate you joining us this week, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.